Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Exploring the Matrix once again with Jennifer Eason. How are you, Jennifer?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm excited, is what I am.
Good.
We're going to
Nice.
take a break from the Enoch saga for a week or two or three or whatever, and we're gonna explore some things that are a little more tinfoil hatty, a little more. Actually, they're not tinfoil hatty because they're documented. So the subject maybe is people don't want to accept the fact that has occult connections and that kind of stuff, and so hopefully people get something out of this and take everything we say with a grain of salt. But these are things that are these are fun rabbit holes to go down, and a lot of people have. But Jennifer recently did a really deep dive into Mr. Jack Parsons, and if you don't know who he is, you'll find out here in a minute. His connection with L. Ron Hubbard, Mr. Scientology himself, and science fiction author. I guess they kind of go hand in hand. I mean, the Scientology and the science fiction part. Anyway, and we're going to talk a little bit about CERN as well, because there's a little bit of CERN involved in this whole occult mess with Werner von Braun and Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard and that whole sex cult gang. Or it's just interesting to me that one of the biggest agencies, like in my childhood, I loved NASA. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to fly the space shuttle. I was all into the moon landing and everything. And then in the mid 90s, after I'd started watching the X-Files for a while, I started doing a little digging, and I didn't like what I was finding. It was like messing with my childhood image of NASA, and I'm not saying everybody that works at NASA is in the occult and has sex rituals and that kind of stuff. We're going to be talking about like the founders, like the people that had a lot of influence in the early development of that organization. So without further ado, I'm going to have Jennifer give us a little history. Who is Mr. Jack Parsons?
Wow. Right. Well, the name sounds very innocuous, right? In fact, when you ask someone like of our parents and probably grandparents, maybe no, they may know the difference, but there's also another Parsons. I don't know who it is, but
I think it's Brad Parsons. He's like a millionaire or something like that, or
was he
multi-millionaire.
popular around that time? Because there's somebody involved with TV that has a similar sounding name. So I think that is interesting, that it's a possibility that Jack Parsons can stay kind of flying under the radar, to use a pun, because he's confused with someone else, but Jack Parsons I knew nothing of. And I'm going to tell you, John, I worked in Pasadena at one time. I had two jobs when I was in Los Angeles. So I worked at a hospital in Pasadena. It was a psychiatric hospital for the elite. So it's a tucked away hospital, like lots of history.
That's the other Parsons.
Bob Parsons.
He's a billionaire. 3.4 billion is his net worth.
Really? Wow.
That's the one I'm
That's
thinking
what
of.
you were thinking of. Yeah. I think it's somebody like he was in the time period of the 40s, was some sort of TV personality. I think that's where there's a confusion, because the name sounds, I don't remember who it is, but in terms of Jack Parsons, I worked at this hospital in Pasadena. So we actually at this hospital would get people like employees from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
Hmm.
that were suicidal. Because in Pasadena, for anybody that knows Los Angeles, you know about Suicide Bridge. There's a bridge in Pasadena that they call Suicide Bridge. So you can imagine I'm working at a psych hospital in Pasadena. So we're going to get a lot of people that didn't quite make it to their destination on the bridge. A lot of times, police are, I guess they're assigned to be there, and they will, talk people off of, the ledge, as they say.
Right.
Hi, Linda.
Yes, Linda. Hello.
So a lot of people that worked at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, or JPL as they called it, these were scientist kind of people. Like, we would often be amazed at, why are all these rocket scientists suicidal and got all these major, when I say major mental breakdown kind of issues, lots of stuff going on there. So I just want to share that as another little why I went down this rabbit hole when I found out that there's a person behind JPL, like one person kind of thing. And then to think that I've actually taken care of patients that worked at JPL and had I'm talking a lot of pressure on them to and then Caltech and all that. And so anyway, going back to Jack Parsons, because it's so many different trails to take with it's hardly the dive that I did is hardly enough to understand.
Believe me, I know. That's why I want to do this, because this fascinates me. It really fascinates me.
Yeah, it's super fascinating. So, okay, so Jack Parsons was seen as a bohemian. And, his contemporaries, when you think about the contemporaries around that time, because we think of that time as being innocent, and there was so much in terms of technology booming, and the space program, the secret space program, and NASA coming out of that era of the contemporaries of Parsons, or Parsons, to put an S on his name. So that is interesting to me, because I think about people like Howard Hughes. His name came up when I did the research. So you have Howard Hughes, and then like you mentioned, L. Ron Hubbard. But for the most part, the trio of L. Ron Hubbard, Jack Parsons, and Aleister Crowley, that is something that I can see has been masked by the people, the Brotherhood, the Machiavellian types. The connections are just not clear in terms of, I would have never made them. And maybe I never really went down and studied who Aleister Crowley was really deeply. I only knew surface stuff. And definitely I didn't know a lot about L. Ron Hubbard other than Dianetics. If you were a Gen Xer, you remember Dianetics commercials coming on when you were staying up real late. It was always this volcanic explosion. You're like, what is this? Because there is a kind of a pull where it sounds interesting. You're like, what is this Dianetics that they're promising? This self-improvement to a point where you become, I don't know, an ascended master. What are they really implying there? So, we remember having some knowledge of L. Ron Hubbard, and then we hear about Scientology and the weird things that happen with that, and the people that get involved with it. But again, I did not know who these people were truly until I studied and researched them all together. And it now makes sense that Parsons was some sort of brilliant rocket scientist, as they say. He
literally was a rocket scientist.
Literally was it sounds like a crazy story that we're making up, but he was a rocket scientist. He was a good-looking guy, he had movie star features.
So was Ted Bundy.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and
Mhm.
so he's this rocket scientist who is an acolyte of Aleister Crowley. So you're wondering, like, you scratch your head, like, how would these two have anything to do with each other? Until you start realizing that all of this rocketry, space stuff was really a cover for a spiritual operation.
Mhm.
And that's where the alarm bells go off for me because I'm like, "Oh, we are really ill educated about these things." We like you said, it shatters the illusion. I dreamed of being a space cadet too. I mean, you know, I dreamed of maybe I could be an astronaut. This is really awesome. They
Mhm.
capture the imagination of children, and that's another thing that comes out of this whole thing is you realize that there are spirits behind it all. And then you feel bad because you're like, but I always learned that this is a spiritual war. So why am I surprised? Why am I shocked that I'm learning that the spiritual war is they're very serious about it. They don't just
Yes.
and that's another thing, John, I want to see what you think about. What occurred to me is that when we see pictures a lot of times in popular culture of people like Aleister Crowley mainly,
Mhm.
he looks off the wall, like,
He
you should be able to spot him a mile away and say, "That is a weirdo. Keep the kids locked up inside the house because look at him, he's a devil worshiper." But no, I wanted to show pictures of Aleister Crowley or Crowley as an everyday kind of man who looks like he looked like a proper gentleman, a
Yeah.
family man. He was married, he had a child, like, the picture that I showed is, like, cute little girl with the curly hair and bow, and the wife is cute, and they look like a nice family, and that's another what do you call that? They call that, something about you wouldn't be able to it's a term that they use that
I know what you're trying to say, and I can't think
you know
of
what
the
I'm talking
term.
about. It comes up a lot. It's something that I believe the brotherhood employs a lot, so you won't believe it because it's
Right.
too bizarre. Probable something, isn't it? Some in like plausible deniability.
Ah, there you something like that, yeah. But yeah,
That's it.
you can just see all kind like
There you
this
are.
is this is the one that people think of a
Yeah, but
lot,
that's
you
an
know.
iconic image right
Yes.
there. This is what you think of Crowley. He's doing crazy things. He's off the wall. Look at this crazy guy. He looks
Then he
evil.
looks like Lex Luthor right here.
Exactly. But no, look at the young picture down. I tend to look at the young picture of him. Well, you can look at his face there and you can see, okay, without this getup, he would look just like a rock and roll kid that I grew up
No,
with.
right. Some English kid that was like an
Yeah,
Ozzy Osbourne fan or something.
exactly.
And of course, Ozzy Osbourne had to correct everybody and say it's Alistair Crowley. He only likes to be called Crowley.
Yeah, I knew I was saying it wrong. What about that picture? This is
What the
this is
heck is
something,
that?
you know, I wanted to show that one because I look for images that are going to capture something a little different. Because when I came across this one, you know what I thought of? I thought of the Bohemians. Just
Ah, yes.
imagine, you know, they're sitting around cafes in Paris, and these are all the writers of that day. You got H.P. Lovecraft and all of these
Mhm.
people, and they're sitting around drinking absinthe. Can't you see it? I'm painting a picture. They're drinking absinthe and they're smoking. Maybe that's marijuana in that pipe. Who knows? I mean, it was allowed. It
Is
wasn't
that a
out.
pipe? It looks like a zucchini.
It's a pipe. He's in.
Okay.
If you look
Oh
at
yeah,
him,
I can see the pipe. Okay, in
you
the
see it
covering his
now.
fingers in the front. Yeah. Okay.
If you see a lot of pictures of him, he has a pipe, and that's what I mean by he looks like a proper British gentleman.
Yeah.
And he has like a stick, a cane in some pictures, or walking cane as they call it. You know, this is the cuckoo-ness that we normally You know,
Right.
a white guy dressed as a pharaoh, and you're like, oh, whatever. He must have been a joke, right?
Right.
No, that's what they want us to believe about him. No, this guy was the most decorated, venerated Mason in all of history, I hear. They say, you know,
And Mason, as we go forward, people, Mason, keep that in the back of your head because the whole Masonic thing is going to tie into it. That's going to be the thread that ties all these dots together.
yes. And that's another like shocker there is that he, Parsons studying under, that's the picture. Like, if you were
Yeah.
to see him, that doesn't scream an evil man to me. I mean, we have to be honest. If we lived in that era and you saw this family, or even right there, he looks a little, I mean, no different from any other man of that age. You wouldn't just say, oh, he's eating,
Right.
cakes of light and
He actually looks like he'd be hanging out with Rockefeller in that picture.
exactly. See, these are the contemporaries of these people. So I thought about it from the standpoint that how do we know that we're not moving among some people that are like a Crowley,
Mhm.
because I think he's camouflaged. People like him are camouflaged. So therefore I can deduce that the brotherhood is camouflaged that way. They learn the duality and they're, the Machiavellian thing. So they said that was one of the things about Jack Parsons. He was this rocket scientist by day, but he was a sex cult, like black magic practitioner, jumping out of coffins, conjuring.
Mhm.
He was conjuring a spirit that they call an elemental to be his girlfriend, so he can
Yes.
have relationships with her. And then he was eating.
They
Okay,
called her the moon child, is I think like was the
yeah,
nickname Moon Child.
child. He was. See, I think all three of these guys had such an ego that I think they were maybe in competition to a degree, because
Mhm.
L. Ron Hubbard, who again, he gets the cover of just a wackadoodle cult leader, he was more evil in what I studied. He was more evil possibly than Aleister Crowley, possibly. I don't know.
I think yes, yes, because he was a brilliant man. And I don't know that Aleister Crowley was a brilliant man. I know he was a very intelligent man, but Jack Parsons was scary intelligent. And it seems like people that are scary intelligent either go one direction or another. Like there's no gray area. They're either super nice, super philanthropical, or they're experimenting with like the occult and trying to bring these entities from other dimensions into our world and yada yada yada. So like you got the mad scientist, brilliant people, and then you have like the do-gooder brilliant people. And he seems to fall into that. And I think Aleister Crowley and the idea of like Cthulhu, for example, like with speaking of I'm in a brain fart now.
H.P. Lovecraft?
Yes, thank you. HP Lovecraft. Like people, those kind of figures were, popular in the day. And then you have, L. Ron Hubbard, and take it from me, folks, having dated a Scientologist
Oh my God.
for about 3 years.
Wow.
There's the people themselves. I'm not going to say they're bad people, because obviously if I dated somebody for 3 years, I didn't think they were a bad person. They're very secretive and close knit. And once you're in with them, they kind of open up. They really start letting you into the whole, what Dianetics became, the whole Scientology program, and all the little machine. I can't remember the name of it, but they have this little machine that they they test your thetans, I think is what it's called. Like you put your hands on it, like it's like a little handles on it, and you put your hands on it.
Mm.
And if the needle goes to a certain point, then you have like too many thetans, as they call it. And for me, I guess the easiest way to describe it would be evil spirits or something to that effect, or like your life's out of balance in some way. So then you have to go through all this cleansing, as they call it, and it's like emotional, psychological kind of stuff. And you keep taking that test until the needle's down to a certain point. Then you're considered normal, like a human being kind of thing. And I didn't get into it because I didn't want to get into it, but she kept trying to force certain things on me. And like she worked for a company in Clearwater. If you don't know, Clearwater is kind of the headquarters for Scientology, and they pretty much own everything down there.
Wow.
It's like a title or an escrow kind of, it's a real estate company, but I think they do title or escrow or something like that. But literally everybody that works there is a Scientologist.
Oh.
So, but they treat they've shown interest in coming or learning about Scientology, and they're very close knit, and they make a lot of money. And they try to protect and support their own. So like I could have got a job there if I wanted to, making a buttload of money. And it was a weird group of friends. Not every one of her friends were obviously into it, but she had a couple close friends that were like, one was an actor and one was some kind of composer or whatever. But they would meet regularly, and like on Saturday or whatever at the Clearwater location to go through. I don't want to say they're cleansed. I can't remember the word that they used, but it was a process, and like you had to do it as much as you needed to. And so they encouraged every week, like you're going down to make sure you're human again. Like on a Saturday, you're going down, and and I don't know if I still have it. I've gone through 2 computers since then, but I had downloaded some of the courses they have because she wanted me to take these courses, and they were like psychological or psychiatric type evaluations of management type people. Like this is how they chose their management in these businesses that they worked in. And like if you didn't know it had anything to do with Scientology, you would think it was a very well written psychiatric analysis kind of book, or research, because it made sense. I mean, it was very clear, concise, but it always. Anyway, long story short, I remember thinking back then, once I found out who L. Ron Hubbard was and connected him to Dianetics, and I remember those commercials too in the middle of the night, like with the volcano and everything, and like how powerful this program was to change your life. And so I kept thinking about that the whole time. I'm like, this science fiction author, literally, they're calling it Scientology, the Church of Scientology, because they want to make it seem legit. So they use the word church with Scientology instead of the cult of Scientology, because I don't think a lot of people would join if you had the word cult in front of it. But I just found it super fascinating. And for any of you that might be Scientologists that watch this, I'm not bashing them. I'm just saying it's totally something unexpected if you're not expecting it. And I find it interesting that how quickly a society can grasp or grab onto something and make it a religion, so to speak, or make it a way of life. And it actually was very scary, because for people that, I don't want to say they're weak-minded. I hate to use the word weak-minded or the phrase weak-minded. Maybe that are more susceptible to suggestion or more susceptible to, maybe they're having a rough time in life and, they're having a hard time finding their way. It's a very alluring program. Like, and once somebody befriends you and they start trying to help you, and you're going right down the path. And it looks like when you go to like downtown Clearwater, when they're on break in all these different buildings, it's almost like the brown shirts, like the Nazi brown shirts, like they all have uniforms, like they all have like these like khakis or whatever kind of pants on and these shirts. And I don't remember what the ladies had on, but you could just walking down the street or driving down the street, you could tell who was a Scientologist by the way they were dressed. And that's how they all dressed. But it was kind of, I'm trying to not to break eggs, if you know what I mean. I'm trying to like dance around a little bit because I don't want to like label people, and I don't want to put them. Well, hello, Leanne, and hello, Sarah.
Yes.
Because I don't want to do that, because I know how I was when I was younger, and I knew some things attracted me more than others, and I just kind of went with it. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to blame anybody for anything, but the whole, after seeing it and all the little things that go along with it, it was, once I was gone out of that relationship and had time to think about it, I was a little freaked out by it, as far as like dodging a bullet almost. And wow. Not that I thought I was going to get murdered in my sleep or anything, but that I was going to, be led along this path. And it was just amazing how fanatical they were. There was no gray area. They were like all in. There was no gray. And they had like a language like that they would talk to each other with. Mm-hmm. And I almost felt like the fifth wheel or something in some conversations, because I knew what they were talking about, but I had no idea what they were talking about, if you know what I mean.
No, I do. I totally know what you mean.
So I can imagine what these guys did back in the day with Aleister Crowley and, with L. Ron back in the early day. And I can only imagine what their, not meetings, but get-togethers and things like that were like. I can only imagine what they talked about. And I know you talked about all their sex parties and stuff. And didn't like Jack Parsons' wife eventually like start messing around with like L. Ron Hubbard or somebody else, and like they started like swapping partners and all this other stuff? And
yeah, that was one of the more disturbing things out of that. They called his home, or I don't know what to call it, a house of a den of hedonism, right? Yes. So they called his house, excuse me, I'm just adjusting here, the parsonage. So
how clever.
The parsonage was a mansion in Pasadena on Millionaires Row. So this gives you an indicator that Jack Parsons was doing well financially. Mm-hmm. L. Ron Hubbard, on the other hand, was not. So you can start to see how Jack Parsons was manipulated, to open your house up to all of these different people. Like, he only knew L. Ron Hubbard a couple of months before L. Ron Hubbard moves into his home. And at the time, Parsons was married to a woman. Now, this is how the thing with the woman being taken from him. Mm-hmm. So Jack Parsons, this is the story. He falls in love with his sister's little sister. So that wasn't his rightful woman. So his wife has a 13-year-old sister that Jack Parsons falls in love with, his sister-in-law. Mm-hmm. Now, because he was a part of this sex cult and they practiced the lama and everything that goes along with it, with the orgies. He technically had no ground to get mad at L. Ron Hubbard, even if L. Ron Hubbard took his actual wife away. He really had no grounds because they were having orgies. So
kind of like how Will Smith had no right to be mad at Chris Rock.
I'm going to do a video on that, by the way. I've started doing my research. I'm about to go down another crazy rabbit hole.
All right, folks, I just had to throw that out there because
exactly. I'm glad
Mr. Morality himself, allowing his wife to sleep with other people, gets mad at a comedian at an event that they're kind of making fun of actors because he's talking about G.I. Jane, and because I think Jada has like alopecia or something like that, and she's like losing hair or whatever.
Right.
So I just found that odd that he would get mad at something like that, but he's okay with other people sleeping with her.
Yeah.
All right, back to Jack Parsons.
When I heard about that, I was like, I thought about it a minute. I had a few reactions. I said, okay, I see something forming, another video. I'm doing the research now. But yeah, so Jack Parsons has this sister-in-law, 13. Maybe he waited to pounce on her when she was 17. You get different stories, but either way, not good. But he was a part of some of the what do you call them? The OTO, different lodges. And he was a part of one called Agape, of all things to be called Agape.
Yeah, right.
So he's got, he's starting to move up in the ranks with the OTO. So the church, as he called it, his church of the Lama, he goes to whoever the leaders are. I guess he was a leader too, or however they talk about these things. And he told them about his thing for the sister-in-law, and they gave him the green light and said, go for it. You don't, because their whole thing is do as thou will. So what is going to stop a person from doing what they will? So he started having relationship with this girl, this sister-in-law. Now, that is who L. Ron Hubbard stole supposedly from him. So do you see how twisted this is?
Yes.
So that's who runs off with L. Ron Hubbard, because, see, L. Ron Hubbard was this storyteller. He was an adventurer. And I think that that's a sort of thing about the 1940s, especially around that time, which makes sense for the space race. And then you have Amelia Earhart. She was a contemporary of a lot of these people, which I think you and I should put on the list of looking into. Have you ever heard of that group that they were all a part of? It's supposed to be a good secret society that Amelia Earhart was a part of, and I think Tesla may have been a part of it. It's called Ultra something.
Yeah, I haven't done a lot of research on it, but I do know what you're talking about.
I'd like to go. Maybe we could put that on the list, because this is a time where now I see, from a spiritual standpoint, lots of portals were open around that time, and that's how the secret knowledge came through. And Aleister Crowley was such a powerful vessel for this ancient knowledge. So, you have L. Ron Hubbard, he's a sailor. And that's another thing I want to say about L. Ron Hubbard. L. Ron Hubbard, did you know he was the youngest Eagle Scout in history?
No.
Yeah, he was the youngest Eagle Scout. So these are the things that stick out to me when I look at a person. I came across that and I said, interesting. So he was a scout, and then he went into the Navy. So he served in the military. So, you have World War II and the whole Nazi thing going on. And you see a clear connection, everyone, with Nazism. And it's like the thing that won't go away, the issue of Nazism, because L. Ron Hubbard Jr., the son, he's now passed away, but he has L. Ron Hubbard has some more, living children still. But this son died, and before he died, he was a whistleblower and told a lot about the church. He didn't agree with his father anymore, but he was raised by L. Ron Hubbard, who programmed him to do orgies with. I mean, he was conditioning his own son. So, like John, it's not to judge the people, because some people are born into cults. And how would they have a chance? It's not right to judge them for being a member of something if they were born in it. And when you think about L. Ron Hubbard's son, he was born into this craziness. And his father was teaching him to do something called soul cracking. It sounds I've never even heard a term such as that. You don't even need to look it up to know that is very dark. Soul cracking. And the son said that L. Ron Hubbard had a harem of women, so many women all the time. And the son participated in orgies with the father, with L. Ron Hubbard. So he was teaching his son to to treat women as disposable. Like, he called them the Scarlet Women. And the son said that his father was the ultimate vampire. He would use women, and he would become a psychic hammer and crash their souls, like a soul cracker is the term. That is like, if that doesn't explain so many things, like right there. And so somebody was asking the son, the L. Ron Hubbard Jr., what is this thing with soul cracking? Where does this come from? You know what the son said? His response was that L. Ron Hubbard was working the same ancient secrets and magic that Hitler was using. And he made it clear that this was a special dark art that is so, like, it's so powerful, so dangerous, and that it is no different from what Hitler and the Nazis were using. And the son said that brainwashing has nothing on this, that it makes brainwashing look like a day in the park. It's that powerful.
It's very powerful.
And it comes from another thing, just so everybody can know, if you're looking into this, and this is something that, even for me, it was just like levels of like, what is that? This ancient knowledge comes from pre-Egypt. So even though they use all, you see Crowley dressed up as a pharaoh and looking like a clown, this information, I think they do that for, like, I think it's all fun. They're laughing at us. They're like, yeah, take a picture of me.
Right, exactly.
Stick my tongue out. So, you'll be like, oh, these goofballs, But this knowledge comes from pre-Egypt. So we're talking like that right there.
That's what H.P. Lovecraft refers to in most of his books, is that exact knowledge that you're talking about.
Yeah, that dark, like, and I used to study a lot of this stuff
from the old ones, as they're called,
old ancient ones, Cthulhu, and I used to study this actually. It's a long story. Like, I was studying this within the realm of even the Black liberation theology. There are several fringe teachers that are overtly occult. They're not even hiding that they're the occult. They're into the occult. And so they deal with a lot of that stuff with H.P. Lovecraft and Blavatsky and now, Bailey and people like that. These people are all contemporaries of each other. And that's pretty much the bedrock of our society. And it's no wonder as to why we are where we are today, because we were thinking that, oh, it's just innocent times,
Right.
Have you noticed, like, even back in the 30s, and if you look at things, they were dabbling in the dark arts. They had a lot of magicians
Well,
and
look at Houdini. I think Houdini was early 1900s, wasn't he, or late 1800s?
probably
He
I'd have to
was.
look into it.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up. But he was obsessed with the occult
There you
and
are.
talking to people on the other side, people that had passed away.
Right.
And I'm curious now. Let's see.
Yeah, I know, right? It's everything happened in the 1800s, right? For my mud flood people. We joke because that's the ultimate, like, tinfoil turban stuff, is to talk about the
Yeah,
mud.
1874 through 1926.
There you are.
So
You know, when you study the mud flood thing, you can almost guess what year, because something mystical was going on in the 1800s. So a lot of these types of people,
you didn't have the programming from television or anything like that. And that literally what happened. They introduced programming into the population. So before that, it was kind of like the Wild West extended into the early 1900s, the early 20th century, where you had that people still had the mentality of, I don't want to say exploration, but like going further into subjects and looking at things for more than what they were. And look at all the like the what we call the snake oil peddlers and that kind of stuff from the day.
right,
Some of those guys were legit peddling some things that actually worked. Like today we know would have worked. Some were peddling things that probably would have killed you, but it was the whole, hey Kyle, it was the idea that there's more here than what meets the eye, and everybody kind of fell into that. Like there was that mentality even in the roaring 20s. Look at all the mysticism and like the tarot card readers and the not astrologers, what are they called? Gosh, brain is locked up today. People, they like fortune tellers, like those kind of people, like psychics, that kind of stuff started popping up around then too.
right,
People saw the effect that it had on other people. So that was a way for them to either gain friends or gain notoriety or make an income or, whatever the case was. And I think there was like a lot of people, a lot of groups kind of competing with each other for attention, and one of those groups, as we know, was this Crowley, Hubbard / Parsons / Lovecraft kind of group, this occult group. And like you said, the OTO, I don't exactly remember what the OTO stands for, but
Ordo Templi Orientis.
Thank you. But I know they'd had a character in there named Grady McMurtry too. And I don't know a lot about him. I just saw him come up in this really long biography of Jack Parsons I had never seen before. I just happened to stumble across it earlier today. But it literally has everything from the day he was born to the day he dies, and all the characters that he was involved with.
Oh my
and
goodness.
all the so it's interesting how these people get tied up together. And you had brought up aviator guy.
Hughes, Howard Hughes.
Yes, Howard Hughes. He was another one of those larger than life characters from back in the day. I don't think that he was into like the occult thing, but he was always, again, that whole mentality, pushing the envelope, trying to see what's on the other side, like people weren't being told they couldn't do things, like it was impossible or whatever. So people would go out and try and do it. And Howard Hughes was a perfect example of that. Not that he was a saint, but he really did do a lot for aviation and pushing forward a lot of technology that probably never would have gotten into the mainstream if he wouldn't have basically put his own life on the line every day, because he wanted to be his own test pilot for his own machines, his own airplanes, and he didn't want other people. Like, that's how smart he was. Like, if he could get into the airplane and fly it, like, he could tell you what was wrong with it or what it needed, or whatever the case was. The guy was brilliant. And Jack Parsons was brilliant too, but it was like in a Lex Luthor kind of way. It was these people really believed heavily in mysticism and heavily in things that aren't of this earth and that are just out of reach, like in other dimensions or in other realities, or or even hell for that matter, what we would consider hell. And it's scary how much they accomplished. Like a lot of it kind of gets pushed under the rug a little bit, how much they actually accomplished.
Yes.
And I guess maybe accomplished is not the word I want to use, but
I think it's a good word. I think it's the perfect word, John. They accomplished their missions. You're absolutely right. They had a mission they set out to do. And according to Parsons, he and L. Ron Hubbard accomplished the Moonchild Babylon working experiment. They were successful, according to Jack Parsons.
Yeah, I want to read this. This ties in with that. I've had this for a while, and apparently I was saving it for today.
Oh, wow.
And it's kind of a lot to take in, but I'll just read it. The title is NASA's Occult Connection, the Masons, the Nazis, and the Magicians. I love that word magician because a lot of these people from that era are they seem to be referred to as magicians, wizards and warlocks, or magicians, or whatever.
Right.
Nazi rocket scientist Werner von Braun, 33rd degree Masonic astronaut Buzz Aldrin, and we're going to talk about Buzz in a little bit here because I don't want to let Buzz go under the radar. Black magician Jack Parsons were key figures in the NASA space missions. On Halloween in 1936, Jack Parsons founded what you were just talking about, the JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, where you got most of your patients from. Parsons was a disciple of Aleister Crowley, however you want to pronounce it, and performed sex magic rituals to bring forth the Moonchild. This was the occult mission of NASA, to bring forth Crowley's Aeon of Horus. In Greek, Horus was called Apollo. This was why NASA's first moon landing was called Apollo 11. The phallic rocket ship landed on the Sea of Tranquility, the goddess Isis, to give birth to Apollo, the Antichrist, Revelation 9/11. So it's just kind of an interesting little quick summary.
A lot, like you packed in a lot in that little square. Oh my gosh. That just goes to show you how you could get information embedded in something like that small amount of real estate. you had imagery too. Amazing.
Yeah, because I was looking at like this website that has Jack Parsons deal. It's called militaryhistoryfandom.com. And literally this is like, I don't know how long it is. Let's see. It's like 7 chapters. And it literally just goes on and on and on and on and on.
How many people? I'm curious to know how many people knew this connection between at least the 3 of them. Because I'm just like, where have I been? That's why I'm really like, I think this is all purposeful, that you don't look at this connection. You don't look at the space program as a spiritual sex cult. Like, that's just too much. Like, it's like, what? Do we have enough tinfoil in the house?
Well, there was, it has to do with Buzz Aldrin, but not really what we're talking about. But since we're thinking about it or talking about it, Buzz Aldrin was confronted not too long ago about actually going to the moon, about walking on the moon and yada, yada, yada. And he wouldn't answer the guy, and like eventually like got pissed and like got rid of the guy that was asking him these questions. And let's see, where is it here? But there seems to be a lot of pictures. We know that whole symbolism thing, with the whole eye thing, the whole, Illuminati thing or whatever. Amazes me how ingrained it is into that society, like with athletes and actors and musicians, and
Right.
until I started seeing these collages and like these video collages and stuff like that,
Mhm.
it blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind
Yeah.
how many people were involved in that. I mean, like people, oh, it just
It's a lot.
absolutely mind blowing.
It really is. It's daunting, and I think that I mean, I level a lot of charges against the church, the modern church of Laodicea. This has been dangerous that they haven't prepared their, you know, what do you want to call parishioners or whatever
Right.
members, the flock is not prepared with this information. In fact, a lot of people are afraid to look into these things. They feel like, "Oh, you're going to put something on yourself, or you're going to, oh my gosh, we don't want to manifest this," because you have the whole, like, the people that only want to talk about unicorns and rainbows, and if you don't talk about unicorns and rainbows, you're actually manifesting the other side's plans, which we're going to have to wake up, because if we're not able to handle the exposure, how are we asking for disclosure? Because this is going to be the disclosure, is that everything's been a lie. And this world system is nothing but lie upon lie upon lie. And it's very daunting to try to wrap our heads around the fact that NASA really has been bringing forward out of the spiritual realm. This was the tunnel, this was the highway to bring
Mhm.
in, I mean, for the people that believe in, the Bible, how else did we think the Antichrist was gonna come here? Like what? He was gonna hatch from an egg like a reptile that, yeah, I know we talk about them being reptiles, but that's not how they get here.
That's right.
Hello? They get here in ways that would shock most people, that they're just
Mhm.
so, like, they're using humans for this stuff. So that's why they need an endless supply of women, as L. Ron Hubbard called them, scarlet women, so they can impregnate them with these moon children. So they're
Mhm.
doing these things and bringing forth, as they call, avatars. They do a lot of study of the Eastern religions, and
Mhm.
Hitler was into the Eastern religions, and this
Like
stuff,
with Shiva and that kind of stuff.
yeah, very ancient
Mhm.
stuff, and the gods that are assigned to these systems. These are ancient spirits. These people are serious about what they're doing, and we have to get serious and not scared,
Mhm.
because they bank on us being scared and never wanting to look into it. But once it's exposed, it takes away at least a layer of power that they have been able to operate in the darkness,
Mhm.
which, I mean, when did we have an innocent time since the creation of this nation? I mean, I'm now like, this was all to keep us lulled to sleep while they were bringing through Cthulhu and the gang.
Right. I I'm 100% with you, and we're going to go off of Jack Parsons for a minute, and because we're talking about this, um, we're going to talk about modern day Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbards and that kind of stuff, because I've done at least 2 shows about it, but I still think it's important enough for people to understand how important you need to study and understand how dangerous CERN is. Um, these people, these brilliant people, are trying to pull a Jack Parsons and pull a Aleister Crowley, pull a H.P. Lovecraft. I've got a video, and I think I have the right clip of a gentleman who is part of a project that he jokes about it and he laughs, but he's serious about bringing these entities into our world, and literally, what, as he calls it, having a high-speed internet connection to this dimension, like a God, what are they? But you'll see things like if you know what the Ouroboros is, the symbol, this symbol here. Don't be surprised if you start seeing this in conjunction with some of these scientists and these people that work at CERN. And we'll go into, if we have time, into what the Ouroboros stands for. So let me see. Well, to Jennifer's point here, outside the front of CERN, you have Shiva, the goddess Shiva, as Jennifer was talking about. You have that Eastern influence and a lot of Hindu type influence for whatever reason. And they have these parades, and outside of these weird parades and things that they have there, they have these dormitories around CERN where like scientists and students and other people can stay. And they've been caught having rituals in front of the statue of Shiva there. And I'm going to show a quick video clip of one of those rituals. I can't attest to its authenticity, but whoever's filming this in the building across the street was obviously scared enough to react at the end. And I'm not going to give it away because I want you to have an honest reaction. So you can see like the hooded figures walking in from the left there.
Oh, wow.
What the What the?
Oh boy.
So there you go. That again, I can't validate that one way or the other, but when I look at that, it looks like they sacrificed somebody. So, and I think that was the reaction of the person that was filming this, because you can see the blade kind of glinting in the light there. But dates matter to these people, and sacrifice and other things matter to these people. And you always have strange things that seem to be happening around CERN. Like this was directly over CERN, like this perpetual lightning cloud / thunderstorm / whatever that appeared. This was in 2016. And other scientists that know what they're talking about are afraid that these people that are working on this super collider are going to accidentally rip a hole in space-time and cause a singularity to appear, basically, which is a black hole. And that would not be good for humanity. Says much of this controversy was generated by an incident in 2016. On June 16th, CERN began the Advanced Wake Field Experiment project to accelerate charged particles. And coincidentally, 10 days later, photographer Christopher Suarez put online a series of photos of the skies above CERN, and that's where these pictures come from.
Oh boy.
And I want to play this. I think this is the video. Let me double check here.
And it clearly gotten back to me, and he constantly.
Yes, this is true from the past. This is the video. The guy's narrating it, so I'm going to skip over a couple parts here. But the guy that made this video is totally on point with this. Let's see here. This is how demented these people are. I mean, this is
putting to the Mandela effect. These guys were basically flaunting, or they.
For those of you that don't know, I would research the Mandela effect. And if you don't know what the Mandela effect is, to put it in a nutshell, it would be like us right now experiencing what we're experiencing and having a memory we know is true, like from our childhood or from a couple years ago or whatever, and even having pictures and documentation. Like, let's say we were at a restaurant, I was wearing a blue shirt and Jennifer was wearing a black shirt and we were eating specific food. Well, the Mandela effect is knowing that's true. In the current time, that event actually gets changed or erased, but you still have your memory of it. And that's basically what the Mandela effect is. And it's like people, we'll have to do a show on the Mandela effect because that's a whole show in itself. It's it's an amazing phenomenon.
Really,
and these people at CERN or that are associated with them take credit for anybody that has experienced the Mandela effect. And that's kind of a bold statement. And that's kind of what he's going to talk about here.
They were playing along, basically telling us that they were behind the Mandela effect. Now, why am I showing you H.P. Lovecraft? Why am I talking about the Mandela effect? Okay, here we go.
And you notice how he brought up H.P. Lovecraft? See the threads connecting these dots.
Jody Rose, in his own words, explaining that what they're pulling through from other dimensions, it wouldn't be accurate to call them demons because demons doesn't quite sum it up. In this video right here, you're going to hear Jody Rose, in his own words, explain that they have opened a literal tsunami and that mankind is not going to be ready for this. Here's Jody in July talking about the Mandela.
This is the guy I was talking about. See the symbol on his shirt there for his company, that Ouroboros there?
Oh, wow. They don't hide it. Wow.
No, they don't. And I think the name of the company is even called Kindred, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
We'll see.
Effect, the quantum key to the pit, and the rumors that CERN and D-Wave are behind the Mandela effect. In his own words.
Over the years there, I got sent pajamas, a whole bunch of stuff. There's lots of interesting things that happen when you build something like a quantum computer. But just as an aside, because I thought it was funny, one of the interesting things that's happened from the D-Wave story is there's this gigantic conspiracy that's arisen on the internet that goes like this. So D-Wave built quantum computers. The way that they work, if you know how this works, is one of the interpretations is that you tap into these parallel universes and they do computations. Sounds really weird, but
notice that he tries to ridicule his own words. It sounds really weird. They tap into other dimensions, but he's clearly showing Anthony Patch, and he just basically glosses over the whole thing. But this is going to get much, much more serious. Now, and I also am playing this at a faster speed to avoid a copyright strike. So there's that.
What's happening is ideas being hijacked to describe something called the Mandela effect, which is this thing where the past changes. So think about something you know is true from the past. And then imagine you went out on the internet and you can't find it at all. It's not there. It doesn't match with your experience. So these people think it is responsible and CERN. And of course, the quantum key to the abyss factors into it somehow. I'm not exactly sure how. Okay, so that's just D-Wave. I did that for about 15 years.
Now, before I made this video, I called and I texted Anthony Patch to get him to comment on this, and he hasn't gotten back to me, and he probably won't. So there's that, because, why not? At any rate, this is much worse. In this video, he's saying that he's basically done with D-Wave, and he's working with Kindred, and they're going to make AI robots that can do every single solitary thing a human can do, but better. Now, notice the symbolism on his shirt, because these guys are loaded with it, because everything that they're doing is on the occult level, which is why they surround themselves with symbolism at all times. They have to. It's part of the deal. You see what I'm saying? It's all coincidental, but these guys are constantly and always wearing the symbolism. But I digress.
What you've heard about AI is not what we mean by AI. What we mean by AI is a software system that can do literally anything that a human can do. Literally anything. And obviously, computers are better at things than people in lots of different ways. So now imagine not only can they do everything the human can do, but they can do everything that the best human at any task could do better than them. So imagine there was the mental Olympics of the 100-meter dash, and Usain Bolt is the fastest person. Now imagine that's some kind of a mental thing, like writing a novel or writing whatever. Imagine now that the thing is so much faster than Usain Bolt. Like, for example, it's a spaceship. Yeah, it's still doing the same thing, but it's doing it so much better because we're limited, because we're people. So what Kindred is trying to do is solve this problem. How do you build machines that are better than people at everything? Now, there's a mental block that we have.
That's another common thread that these people have. Besides the symbolism, we all know that symbolism will be the downfall anyway. But the other thing they have an obsession with is transhumanism, and the idea that people are inherently not that great and they need to be enhanced in some way, or they need to be better. And if they can't be better, then they need to be eliminated in some way, like in transferring a consciousness to something like a machine, or, you know, whatever the case is. So they're obsessed with that kind of stuff as well.
Here when we think about this, because when you think about that, one of your questions might be, for example, what are the applications of this? So imagine this. Imagine for $10, let's say, I could build a machine, like a little robot that had fingers and eyes and all that, and it could do better than you, no matter what it is. And I could sell that to your employer for, say, $15 and make a profit, instead of having to pay you $100,000 a year.
So right off the bat, this goes back to the video that TrueStream Media put out a year and a half or so ago called Obsolete, where they are literally going to replace humanity in every. No one will have any jobs whatsoever if these guys get their wish, because they're bringing through demonic entities. Now, does that sound like a conspiracy theory? Of course it does. But do you know where that comes from? The horse's mouth. Continue listening, and he is going to straight up say it. And you should be terrified, and you should be prompted to prepare yourself spiritually, because this is a spiritual battle. No two ways about it. I don't care what you think. There's a reason that this was put in the Bible. And there's just no two ways about it. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Now stay tuned, because Jordy is going to straight say this. And he also says the same thing that I say all the time. This is going on in the background, whether you know it or not. He also alludes to the fact that everyone's worried about the healthcare plan and sports and television and the news and politics, while this continues to march on in the background. I've listened to this exact interview with Jordy, his presentation with Jordy. I've listened to it at least 15 times since yesterday.
Now imagine that was true for every single job. So that's what we're talking about here, is a complete and utter transformative change that of the likes of which has never been seen before in the history of humanity, making the Industrial Revolution look like a little tiny blip on the path that humans have taken from when we emerged from the ooze a few billion years ago. We are right on the verge of that transition now. So this guy, Rich Sutton, is one of the most famous people in the academic world of AI.
Now listen. This guy is the guy behind the D-Wave quantum computer, the only quantum computer in the world that is accessing other dimensions, according to what they are telling us. He is telling us that we are on the verge right now. So pay attention, because what he is going to say should shape your entire future.
And like many, when asked, when will this happen? He says things like this. 25% chance within 13 years of this thing that I'm talking about. You know, when you think about what is on the, what you read on the news, you know, CNN, BuzzFeed, whatever, they're all kind of the same nowadays. Think about how unimportant that thing is that you're reading if this is true. Yeah? So what does this have to do with aliens?
Wow.
So Sam Harris, who I quite admire, is a very interesting guy, was reciting this parable at a TED Talk that he was giving, and it goes something like this. So I am, say I'm the President of the United States. So I received this message from the heavens. So my microwave dish, my SETI dish, finally captures something. And what it says is, in 50 years, or 13 years, we're coming to your planet. You got to be ready. Now just imagine what would happen if that happened. A super intelligent alien race beamed down a message to all of us Earthlings saying, we're coming July 13th, 2030, and boy, you better be ready because the mothership is landing right on the front lawn of the White House or wherever you wanted to land on that day. The amount of resources that would be marshaled to try to figure out what to do would encompass the whole world. AI is just like that. So when this thing that I'm talking about happens, it's going to be exactly the thing that you're thinking about those super intelligent AIs. So the one thing I can tell you is they're not going to be like us. So alien means, you know, different. These things that we're building are not going to be people. They might be really smart. They might be really good at all sorts of different things, but they're not going to be like us. They're going to be aliens. And they're going to be, I'm sorry to say, way smarter than every single person in this room.
Now pay attention because he's literally disclosing right this moment
that we can't even comprehend. So this, of course, triggers a lot of alarm. One of the guys who talks about this is Elon, who says things like this, like, when you do this, beware. Because you think, just like the guy in the stories, that when you do this, you're going to put that little guy in a pentagram, and you're going to have your holy water out, and you're going to wave it at the thing, and by God, it's going to do exactly what you say, and not one thing more. But it never works out that way. So this is an attitude that some are having, this emerging alarmism about the way this is going to go. But these words, demons, doesn't capture the essence of what's happening here. I don't know if any of you are turn of the century weird fiction fans, but there's this guy named H.P. Lovecraft, who's a very famous American weird fiction author. And he espoused a view which is called cosmicism. And the essence of cosmicism is cosmic indifference. So what he was saying is basically, yes, there are these massively intelligent entities out there, but they're not good, they're not evil. They just don't give a shit about you even in the slightest. The same way that you don't care about an ant is the same way they're not going to care about you. And these things that we're summoning into the world now are not demons, they're not evil.
These things that we are summoning into the world right now, I don't know if you caught that. He's getting a little more brazen as he's talking here.
Yeah.
So it gets even better.
Wow.
The same way that you don't care about an ant is the same way they're not going to care about you. And these things that we're summoning into the world now are not demons, they're not evil, but they're more like the...
And you notice how he's trying to make these entities sound like they're okay, like they don't, like they're not demons, like they do with any other narrative, like they're doing the social programming. They're not demons. So if you encounter one or they become normal, they're not demons. They're not evil.
They're smart, right? Everything
They're
is
smart.
about being smart and having knowledge.
Of crafty and great old ones, there are entities that are not necessarily going to be aligned with what we want.
Now, you can spin that any which way you like. He has straight up told you these entities that we're summoning into this world. He's putting a call to action out. He's sitting in front of a classroom full of code writing students and asking them to come on board right now. He's already said that they've opened the floodgates. He's already described what they were. He's already saying that they will appear to be quote unquote alien. If you want to stay in your holiday season, your safe space, whatever you want, this is what we've been telling you for years. And this is why we've been telling you, because while everyone else is watching BuzzFeed and CNN and NFL and everything else, some of us have been studying this ad nauseum. This is it.
Aligned with what we want. So this transition is really, really massively important for our entire species to navigate.
This transition is important for our species to navigate. Interesting phrasing.
And going back to that thing that Sam Harris was saying, nobody is paying attention. This thing is happening in the background while people bicker about politics and what's going to be in the healthcare plan in the US. And underneath it all is this rising tsunami that, if we're not careful, is going to wipe us all out.
How much clearer do you need it to be said? This is the guy that started D-Wave. This is the man that's given us a high-speed internet connection to other dimensional beings. He is saying it. Here it is. It couldn't be any clearer. I don't know what else to tell you.
So,
So tying in with that, I'm not going to play the rest of this because you get the idea. Their ad to recruit people for this company is not a joke. Kindred, that company that I showed you on his shirt, Kindred's mission is to be first to human level AI. We are hiring, and they had demonologists crossed out as a joke.
Oh, wow.
Software engineers. And that literally was their recruiting ad.
You know, I'm telling you, John, just to listen to this man boldly disclose their plans, they are at what many of us conspiracy theorists who have been on we've had our tinfoil hat on for a long time. They have literally forecasted that they were going to be this bold at some point, and they called it the externalization of the plan. I think Alice Bailey, outlined all of this, the phases. And I'm very angry about the church. I mean, I know I heard that the church was going to be lukewarm, but it's such a betrayal to people of faith that talk about demons. Demons are not like conspiracy theories to a Christian. They're very real. If you take the Bible as true, demons are spoken of, and they're not benevolent. None of them. So the fact that they could be so bold to use the terminology, the young generation, they say that they call this generation after Gen X, they call them Gen Hex. And I was shocked at that. Gen Hex is because they are so comfortable with Wicca, with demonology, the games like Dungeons and Dragons. This is our responsibility. This is literally the previous generations, the boomers and the Gen Xers. This falls on us, that we have been asleep while the children have been lured by Pan, the Pan god who lures the children. They're not trying to lure us. They know we're like, come on, what are you going? if anything, they'll psyop your family, the older family members to be, just kind of clueless, but they're really after the young people. And we've got to get serious about protecting the young people from what is in the works. It's not plans anymore. The plans are, they're taken very serious. And I think a lot of us, even in the Patriot community, are being lulled into this complacency that we really don't understand what is about to happen. We think it's going to go one way in terms of like how things are going to manifest. But I really hope that we wake up to the fact that we are going to see some things before all the good stuff and everything, the Jubilee and all the good days. It's going to be this kind of stuff that in the word is said that many people's hearts will grow faint at the sight of, can you imagine the ancient ones coming back? They're coming back, the ancient ones. They've been conjuring forces. They call them forces. Like Jack Parsons, he was conjuring, he said a force. He said it's a blind force that needs to be directed by humans. But he realized that it's such a chaotic force that many people are not even prepared to understand the occult. Even the practitioners of the occult, they don't understand the power. And he mentioned that the Horus, the child that they were, that spirit of Horus that they were bringing through is the spirit of fire, of war and violence, of suicide and murder. And what is marking our times right now? The suicides that are happening that they're not talking about. And
look at the, like what's happening. Like look at the Travis Scott concert, for example. That the whole imagery of that concert was just like being at the gates of hell. All the videos that I've seen from that concert, like all the TikTok videos and stuff, these people, these kids that were at the concert all had the same description, that it felt like they were standing on the surface of the sun or like they were standing in hell because it was so hot, so stifling. Like people were passing out, people were having cardiac arrests, people were getting, there was claims that these security guards were injecting people with stuff like in the backs of their necks and making them have cardiac arrests and that kind of stuff. And if you look at like the entrance to the concert, like at night with all the flames and everything, it looked like the gates of hell. It literally looked like the people that were attending the concert were walking into this mouth and being devoured in a sense, like in a demonic sense. And it's funny because right before that, I think it was a few days before that concert, CERN is in the picture again. Like, I want to play this video real quick because I don't think that it's a coincidence that this happened a couple days before. See, I always thought like the Travis Scott concert was like a sacrificial ritual for the people that died there. Like if you notice, like Travis Scott was standing and he was looking right at the kid that collapsed of cardiac arrest. Like he was looking right at him. But at CERN, meanwhile in CERN.
Here, one moment. Then we'll go back. So tomorrow, in fact, this wheel, tomorrow, that wheel is going to go down there, 100 meters underground to the Atlas experiment at CERN. Yeah, so that wheel, hundreds of people have been working on that wheel for several years, and it's now finally ready. It's a magnificent piece of work, a magnificent piece of engineering and science, and now it's ready. Now it's ready to be taken and finally be able to do its job.
Oh, interesting.
Anyway, I just found that interesting because this was something they were like, couldn't wait to get fired up and get running. And right after, a couple days after this video, I don't remember, I think it was called Alice or something, like the project or whatever it was called. But it's always about these like portals and the ideas of portals and gateways to other areas. Like if you think about it, CERN is 17 miles in diameter underground.
Okay.
And then you have like that Alice experiment or whatever. That pit is 100 meters deep, is circular, and then this device is circular. And you had the Ouroboros, that we were talking about earlier. And there's just too many weird occult connections to this facility and to things that are happening in society, especially with, I just found the Travis Scott thing interesting because of the timing of it, I guess. And the idea that that occultism still exists. Like there's still the, it's so mainstream now. I mean, look, like when we were kids, like it was, people were like looked upon strangely, like if they were Marilyn Manson fans, or,
Right.
and God only knows if Marilyn Manson would have been the worst thing we had to deal with,
Yeah, exactly.
But with Jack Parsons, going back to Werner von Braun and that gang that we were talking about earlier, like von Braun, like with Operation Paperclip, with the Nazis coming and not really dying off, but coming to the United States and starting the space program and the modern space program anyway.
Right.
Like their origins were hidden. Like the public didn't know like von Braun was tied to the Nazis until after a lot of his successes and that kind of thing. I think let's see here. That's the title says Werner von Braun and the Nazis. He led NASA's development of the Saturn V rocket that took Apollo 11 to the moon. His Nazi record was not widely known until after his death. I just find that weird, like that they were able to hide it that long.
Yeah, there's a really well orchestrated, cloaking of all of these Nazis, hundreds, and I don't know the amount of scientists that came over here in exchange for what they knew and to continue. Like nothing stopped their continuum of what they were working on. It wasn't they didn't hesitate just because of the war. And this country gave them cover, everyone. We have to deal with some really hard facts.
Big time cover. I mean, it was like, here, you do this for us, you're going to be heroes.
I mean, there's no like cleaning that up. We did not need any science from the Nazis. I can't imagine what kind of deal we would have made with the Nazis to advance our technology, not for the purpose of the people. We are not benefiting from whatever they're doing. And look at all the names of how they name these, even the Apollo mission itself, Apollo and Atlas and all these names. They've been telling us.
If they could hide von Braun's past, his Nazi connections, they can fake a moon landing, let me tell you, because since I was a kid, this picture has always perplexed me. This is the Apollo lunar lander leaving the surface of the moon. Who did they leave behind to take that picture?
And why didn't we ask that question?
Yeah, nobody asked the question. The only person that actually came out and admitted that he had involvement with him before his death was Stanley Kubrick, the guy that made 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah. Eyes Wide Shut.
Yes, he came right out and said it's fake. They asked me to do it. They asked me to produce this moon landing deal, and
he told too many. Like, I think they do allow for some disclosure, but I think that he couldn't live with just all of the secrets he was keeping. He had to let people know. And I believe he did a great service. You know, he sacrificed his life to tell some truth. I don't know. It just appears that way. I don't know if they really did want to let it out. And maybe this is all, you know, a mind thing as well. It's hard to know navigating all of this deception because it's layers and layers of deception. But
and add Mr. Disney into the mix with Von Braun as well, and the whole group of characters.
Yeah, it's like Disney is Pan. He is Disney is the empowerment and embodiment of the spirit of Pan. No one has lured children as much as Disney. And people will fight you over saying that. They will.
Well, look at recently how many people have been arrested over the last 2 years in Disney for child trafficking. In Disney, these are employees.
Yeah, but this doesn't make the major news because we have the stunning and brave Zelensky taking all this time up, where you see how things are buried because all of the distraction. People are not putting things together and their children are being targeted. That's where we've been screaming from the mountaintops about they're after the children. And we sound crazy. We look like Pizza Hut employees, like Pizzagate. Pizzagate Q-tards talking about now. So, you know, they've infiltrated the both sides of this argument. And
yes.
For you and I to be studying the book of Enoch at this time, it just lets me know like there are even deeper reasons why we wanted to do it. And this ties into even that because once you start to warm up to the fact that, okay, I don't know a lot about what's going on. I think the whole NASA thing might be a lie and everything else. 9/11 was an inside job. You get to these points, oh yeah, Bohemian Grove and Klaus Schwab. You know who Klaus Schwab is. You realize, okay, this was very important for us not to understand cosmology because that will literally bring you closer to the truth of Jah if you understand cosmology. But the way they've created all this fairy tale, it keeps people from grasping the truth and even trusting the scriptures because you know they only trust the science, which is religion. We've been saying it, but now it really, like, I get it. It is religion because why would they put a statue of Shiva in front of a scientific institution like CERN? Why do that? That looked when I first saw Shiva outside of the thing, I said, these kooky scientists, like, I didn't think anything. I was like, weird. But you know, I was like, smart people like that are just weird, kooky. No, I mean, you start to realize that Shiva, and this may like offend people of the Hindu faith, but it's right there to see. If you look up Shiva, Shiva stands as like goddess of destruction. And we have so many things that are influenced by Shiva. Like you see a lot of the stars when they were sticking their tongue out. It's something about sticking your tongue out. When that whole Travis Scott thing was going on, and Texas was really a hotbed in November, I started looking at what's going on in Texas right now. And I realized, like, okay, the Rolling Stones did some concert. And the fact that these old dudes are still performing is a weird thing in itself. Like, the devil doesn't give them a retirement. They have to get out there and perform and do the bidding of the dark kingdom because they were living it up, getting fame and money and drugs and whatever else. Women, you know, when you think of the Stones and all the overindulgence that they receive, well, they owe the piper, the pan. They got to pay pan. And so they're out there with wheelchairs just about and feeding tubes, performing all this like young sexually charged music. It looks gross to have these old geezers out there singing about what? I'd like to meet you. Like, what? So, I was looking at that and I looked at the very logo of the Rolling Stones, and
Yep.
it's Shiva, that sticking out of the tongue. These people do this stuff in front of our face and we just think they're being odd. No, they are doing things. They are performing spells. And so that sticking out of the tongue thing, the Rolling Stones pick that because of the chaos magic behind Shiva. And then other stars like Miley Cyrus, remember she was sticking her tongue out doing a wrecking ball. Why do you think she's sticking her tongue out saying about a wrecking ball? Because it's all about chaos and destruction. And like Jack Parsons said, it's a force that's so powerful, and it's blind, and it's embedded in murder and war and suicide, self-destruction. And we wonder why the young people are so self-destructive, like more so than any time. The self-harming. I've worked with so many young people that cut themselves. They cannot stop. And we wonder, what is it? Why is this happening to young people? This is the hardest time to be a young person, I think, ever. It has to be. And so with this, sticking out of the tongue and this Shiva, this god of destruction, that, even, okay, for you basketball fans, who else stuck their tongue out? None other than Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan did it all the time.
He did it all the time. And you wouldn't even think a man would do that. But I want you all to just be mindful when you see people doing that, sticking their tongue out.
He's like a Saint Bernard.
Yeah, this is all about Shiva and this force that they're being conduits to bring these spirits into this realm and to host them. They're being avatars.
Look at even like the Illuminati, the symbolism for the Illuminati, in addition to the Shiva symbolism with the tongue and that kind of stuff. Look at all the symbolism in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I'll play this real quick. And look at all the companies that use that same symbol in front of your face, in addition to the 666 and that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
that blows me away.
Mhm.
Kudos to whoever put that clip together, because
Yeah,
I'm sure
that
that's not
was-
everybody, but that
Yeah.
was 2 minutes straight of different people doing the same symbolism.
Mm.
So if it was like one person randomly every once in a while, I would think they were a kook, or that was just some weird thing that they were doing. But
Exactly.
they're in a club that we're not in. They're in a society that we're not in,
Exactly.
and they look at us differently than they look at themselves.
Mhm.
We don't exist to them other than to provide them with the adoration that they want, the finances that they want,
Yeah.
the blood rituals that they want, the whatever creepy, crazy Illuminati bullshit that they do on a daily basis. That's all we're there for them. We don't exist in any other capacity, you know.
Exactly. They're cold. I mean, and they speak about it, a lot of them change, and that's what's, you talk about like the changing of the memory. You mentioned that earlier. The erasing.
Yeah,
That's
the
something,
Mandela effect.
yeah, the Mandela, and like memory holding things. And this is the ultimate in narcissistic abuse, because what the enemy does to us as humans is tries to wipe out our memory, because in doing so, we won't have a proper like perspective of our identity or anything. And you see how identity is shaped in this culture. And yeah, there you go. It's like they make no secrets about what they're doing. They're that bold because we stand down like a bunch of sheep. I mean, I know we're called sheep, but we're not supposed to act like sheep. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but this stuff is for us to crack open the understanding, ask God to show us what bring these scriptures alive, because yeah, I saw that of him and just disgusting. And we have to know the power. If we're to stand, meaning we're not going to bow down and buckle to fear. If we are to stand, no matter what they reveal, no matter what they do in terms of a psyop, if we're to stand, we have to get into battle ready positions. We have to know our weaponry. Any military, they don't just get the weapons on the day of the war. They have to be trained in weaponry. And we don't even have to do all that kind of training. We're told that our power comes through Jah. He's given us like armor that we can put on. Anybody who would not want to be suited up for this kind of war, it's foolish. It's foolish to think that we're going back to any semblance of normalcy, whatever we thought that was. It's only going to get like the brakes are not the evil kingdom will not put the brakes on themselves. Like you just said, they don't care about us. They don't have empathy, compassion. They are without these things. And what I wanted to make a point of with the memory thing, one of the things that I read about with L. Ron Hubbard, what he taught his son, and this is from his son's account. He was a whistleblower. And he said, something about beating back the memory, beating back the memory, something about memory. And I thought about Will Smith, who's in the headlines, Men in Black. And what did they do? They do the memory thing. So there's something about our memory that is really a threat to the dark kingdom. And hence why there's no respect for the elders in our culture, and how they tried to wipe out old people with their pandemic is to wipe out the memory and memory hold this culture, because most people don't have a wise grandmother or a wise auntie that will teach them about these things that they claim are conspiracy theories. And they have all these buzzwords to control the minds of these young people. Just call it a conspiracy theory. Just say Trump and Q-tards and they'll just shut down. They won't listen because they've already been conditioned to reject this. And that's just, disturbing, the memory holding, because what I also wanted to say in terms of narcissistic abuse, it's like if we're at the point, a lot of us are at the point with our relationship to this world system, we feel battered, like in a battered relationship. And anybody who's ever been in abusive, any kind of abusive, not just physical, but mental, is sometimes the worst.
Yes.
And those people that can abuse people mentally, and if you find that you're dealing with a borderline personality or a narcissist of that sort, there's no pills that the pharmaceutical company can give this person. This is a spiritual issue. And they literally do not care. You cannot talk empathy and compassion into them. You can't love them to it. The person that they see as their, whatever they do to get the energy off of these people, the vampirism, that they don't have compassion. You're just like an energy battery for them.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what this kind of narcissistic abuse is like is if you bring up truth, they will they will use like deflection and projection and every kind of method, and they know how to memory hold the truth.
Yes.
Then you're questioning your sanity, you're questioning like everything. Who am I? Did that really happen? Did I walk into their fist? Maybe I did. Maybe I ran into their fist. Maybe that is what happened, right? Maybe when I walked into the bedroom and saw the two of them, maybe I didn't see that, right? And so this is how a narcissistic relationship is you're always questioning reality, and you don't trust yourself anymore because they have manipulated your mind to a point where you don't even know what is up and what is down. And that is where we are with this relationship with this world system. They treat us in this abusive way, and they will take truth from the internet and memory hold it to the point that you're like, you don't know, like you're questioning everything about you.
Yes.
And that's what they want, to keep you constantly demoralized, disoriented, and then you give up. But really, you're the one with all the power. They just have convinced a lot of us that we don't have power. But I'm going to tell you, in this spiritual warfare, if you're rolling with Jah, you have the power. Just his name. It sends demons fleeing. And we have to do this so we can stand at this time. This is a very critical time. If we're being lulled to sleep by whatever you want to call it, fairy tales, I suggest we get to something to ground us, because it is an assault. And the only grounding thing that I have found are the scriptures. And by the way, for people who have problems with the validity of the scripture, I don't think anybody here would, but if you're new and listening and you're just kind of like not sure about things, just know that the dark kingdom, they read scriptures. They believe in the scripture. They don't want Christians to, but they use the scripture all the time. Even the singer Beyonce, like I bring pop culture references up a lot, like you do. But Beyonce had an album. It was a visual album. It was so dark. This woman had lyrics about taking pages from the Bible and inserting them inside of her body. Now, I can't imagine anything more blasphemous and dark. And for anybody who still likes her after that album, I can't imagine.
Yeah, you hit on some very excellent points there. That's why I'm jotting a bunch of notes down on my napkin here. Look at how crazy things seem right now, and think about what Jennifer just said. they've become, over time, they've become masters of gaslighting. They want you to think that you're the minority. So if you have enough of them telling you that 2 + 2 = 5, pretty soon, like Jennifer said, you're going to question your reality because, well, everybody else thinks 2 + 2 is 5. I must be wrong. It must not be 4. Or something must be, I must be stupid or something. That's what they're good at. They're masters at, for the lack of a better term, gaslighting. They are like PhDs in gaslighting. They say it with a straight face. They sell it 100%. That's why a lot of these people are actors. They sell it 100%, and they make it so believable that you start questioning yourself. And then after a while, you start thinking that you're the minority. Like you know, even though that these people that are perpetuating this stuff are just like a sliver of the population, very, very small amount of people, but they have a big impact because they assume, because we've never questioned it before. We've never resisted. We've never called them on it. So they're banking on the fact that you're not going to call them out on their BS because they're not used to it. They're so used to just steamrolling over everybody with this nonsense. Even back in like Jack Parsons' time, the early NASA days, and like if you look at a lot of these major things that have happened in time, and these figures that have kind of manipulated how our society evolved in some way, thought the same thing about the common man, the common person. They thought that because of their superior intellect, that there's no way that the common man could dare challenge their godlike mentality. They're like they were equal to God as far as creating a society or creating, their reality and creating our reality in addition. But people are so inherently good, inherently nice, that we just believe them. Like our grandfathers, whoever were around at the time, were trusting people, and they took advantage of the idea or the fact that they were trusting people. And to me, that's an evil thing to do, because knowing that somebody's going to believe everything you say 100% because they don't believe that you're actually going to lie to them, and doing that every single day for years and years and years and years, that's just evil. And I mean, look at where we're at as a society now, all across the world. Look at everything that's going on right now. Look at, people like Anal Schwab and other people that have come into power, because they just assume it. They assume that they're going to take the reins. They're going to assume that nobody's going to question them. So they just steamroll over the population. You're going to do what we want, and you're going to enjoy this new society that we've got planned for you. And you're going to like it. You're going to like it. You're going to own nothing, and you're going to like it. You're going to, it's, so to Jennifer's points there, they take advantage of not only your goodwill, but your Christian faith in a lot of cases. They're assuming, and they do, trust me, that if you think you know the scriptures pretty well, I guarantee they know them better. Because if you're going to counter something, or you're going to try to eliminate your enemy, you have to know them better than they know themselves. And I guarantee that these people, and I'm not going to name names, but there's a couple of them out there right now, and then some that have been in the past, that people really look up to in the Christian faith and religion, I'll call it, as Charlie would say, religiosity, that are totally taking advantage of people's goodwill and good, just to further an agenda. And sorry for getting a little off subject or tangent here, but I think it's important to understand like where these people were coming from, like these Jack Parsons and the H.P. Lovecrafts and the Aleister Crowleys and, the people, some of these people working with the quantum computers and at CERN and that kind of stuff, where a lot of these people are coming from. As Jennifer stated, it is a strong force. It is a strong, strong, strong force. But there's a reason why God put us just below him and not below the angels or not below any other, like we have dominion over all life, and we have to take advantage of that. We have to take advantage of our ability to remove this evil, to remove these demons, to remove these forces that are these principalities, as the Bible calls them, in these areas that are opening these portals and allowing these forces, these beings, these demons to come forth. We have the ability to stop that. We have the ability to, as Jennifer stated, just Jesus's name alone is powerful enough, if used correctly, to get rid of this, get rid of any, and it starts with individuals. It starts with everybody in their own families, their own households, their own workplaces to, if they see something, say something. Like if somebody starts falling into this bandwagon, where like with Beyonce and with Travis Scott and a lot of these people that are, these people in Hollywood, call them out on it. Call them out on it. Stop them in their tracks. Stop them in their tracks. Social posts. There's paid people every day in Twitter, Facebook, and any social media that are there to steer a narrative, whether it's posting things like their own content or commenting on somebody's content to steer thought, steer people away from the actual truth of the post. And they don't like the idea that people are catching on to their BS, and it scares them. And it's really, it's crazy, but we can't allow the Jack Parsons of the world and the Werner von Brauns of the world and people that have these godlike aspirations to be controlling in our society. I mean, look how influential Bill Gates became. He went from a computer nerd, whatever, to a global vaccine / whatever. Look at Anal Schwab, look at all these elites, the Rothschilds, this really thin layer. That's like here's a good reference. Like if you think of a pond always, or soup, chicken noodles, or a cream of chicken soup, when it starts cooling, gets that layer of scum on the top. That's what this is. This is the layer of scum on the top. It's not the majority. It's just that layer of scum. It sits on top of everything and it's blocking everything underneath it. You can poke through that and get rid of that scum, figuratively and literally, I guess. But so I guess my long rant here, the point I'm trying to make is we have the ability, we have the power. And that's why we do shows like this about people in the past and people currently and their effect on society and the things that they tried to do. So we literally don't repeat the past. So we try to make society a little better, or, try to give people hope that we have the power to stop this. We didn't do it previously because we never thought anything was going on. We just let people do their thing. Everybody, left everybody alone. You do your thing, I'll do my thing. And as that gentleman stated it, but no matter what we thought in the background, this was happening regardless. So we have to pay attention and we have to care about what's happening in our world, in our society, in our families and work and whatever. We have to care about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Amen. And protect these children. That's what brings us together. That theme of save the children. It's not just sex trafficking and things like that. It is literally getting to the children and trying to lure them into the darkness with the Pied Piper, you know? This is why they make these very disturbing children's stories that we went along with. And then we thought about, why are we continuing to pass down these horrible stories, you know? Because
Well,
they
even look
were,
at Hansel and Gretel.
oh my God, that's terrible. I was always really terrified at that, you know?
That's a freaky, scary story, but it's about kids.
Oh, yeah. And it's like baking them in the oven. Like, this is horrible. And, you know, even, I mean, I know he's a Christian author. I love C.S. Lewis, but the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe with
Mhm.
the satyr. Do you call him satyr?
Satyr?
Satyr, the man goat
Yeah, satyr.
on the other side of the wardrobe that lured the child. I was so disturbed at that when but you know what? I kept watching because I'm like, this is a Christian movie, but it didn't sit well with me. I still have yet. I may do a whole breakdown of like maybe that would be fun for us to do. You like C.S. Lewis and stuff?
Oh, I loved C.S. Lewis as a kid.
I would love to do like, I'd love to talk with you and you all about C.S. Lewis, because those are the things I love too. Like, I love a lot of his work, you know, and just to look at it now, as opposed to when I did, you know, explore a lot of his work. I haven't read a lot from him in a long time, but those are the kind of things that we have to wake up to that and get really serious about saving children, because even recently, like a couple days ago, it was announced that Cardi B, the rapper, they call her a rapper, Cardi B is now going to be, or she is already, a guest on a Nickelodeon show, a little TV show for babies, really, that watch cartoons, like Baby Sharks, it's called, something about a baby shark. So she is a character as a baby shark, and then her husband and daughter. But the fact that someone like her would be attached to children's programming, there's no way. Like, we are gone. This society is gone too far. We have to, like you said, we have to put a standard up to protect these children. It is not okay for Cardi B to do children's programming. Well, the fact that it's called children's programming, we should have a problem with that, right?
Look at the meltdown everybody's having over what Ron DeSantis did today or yesterday. He completely, like, he passed. Hold on, I have it here. He's very much for the children. So he passed something in Florida, basically, that states, let's see if I have it available here. Yes, there it is. So let me share this here. Governor DeSantis signs the parental rights in education bill as Peterwood and Disney seethe but can do nothing. He states, I don't care what corporate media outlets say. I don't care what Hollywood says. I don't care what big corporations say. Here I stand. I'm not backing down. And it's basically, look at what's happening in like California and other really liberal areas. You've got in bookstores, you've got like tranny night. You've got drag queens coming in and reading books to children dressed in drag, to like 5 and 6 year olds, 7-year-olds, and that kind of stuff. And whoever the justice, or no, K, starts with a K. The Supreme Court. Yes.
Johnny,
in her own school district, she got called out because Ted Cruz lit her up about the books that she allows in, that she supports in the, like they're trying to get rid of books like, you know, To Kill a Mockingbird and that kind of stuff, but they're allowing these books that show children in sexual acts, you know, and these are in schools. These are school books like that are allowed. It's mind numbing.
It really is.
That people are okay with this, because even locally here where I live in Northern Ohio, I live in a college town. So a lot of it's predominantly very liberal, and it was was disgusting because the one person that got elected to the school board this last time that stood up against critical race theory and that kind of stuff, all the BS that they're pushing at the high school and stuff like that, he actually stepped down a couple weeks ago because he said he felt like God was calling him to do something else, and he was tired of getting outnumbered. Like they were always outvoting him on everything. And felt like he was fighting a battle by himself. And the thing that he was pissed off the most about, and this is what made me think about what you're talking about, he says, I'm not even getting any support from the parents. He goes, if I would have the support of the parents, that they cared about their students not having the sexual material in school, not having critical race theory and all this other stuff, I would still fight. I would still stay on the board. I would still fight. But he said, I don't feel like I'm getting any support from the parents. And that's the bad thing. Parents have to start paying attention and caring about what's happening in their kids' lives. And if they do, and they support this kind of stuff, I can't even imagine the society if I didn't think this was going the way I thought it was, I would actually be scared for the next generation. But I think there's a lot that's happening in the background that's really positive. And I think in the long run, it will squash this stuff and it will reverse it. And we'll start getting back to education like I remember, like where you learn civics and you learn home ec and you learned all this other stuff, how to balance a checkbook and how to be a member of society, how to treat your neighbors, how to treat your friends, how to look at things critically, and how to, instead of being a programmed robot and just accepting orders, or being taught to accept and not to question things. So
yeah,
I don't know.
It's one of those things also, like, John, that I think of, like, if a society doesn't protect their children, what kind of society is that? I mean, I'm all for, like, leaving everybody to self-govern. Now, that would be the most awesome thing, but we have to have morality to even self-govern. But if you look at the animal kingdom, there's no animal in the world that will allow their young to be harmed. They will die. They will put themselves in harm's way. I mean, we bring up the bear all the time, the mama bear. Nobody would be so foolish to approach a mama bear. They know, we already know what the mama bear is going to do. But what are we doing? What are we doing as humans? Our children are being led by the spirit of Pan. And what are we doing? That's all. I mean, I just want to say, if animals will protect their young and they're just animals, it's really shocking.
Yeah, it is. People, this kind of went everywhere tonight, which is great. I don't mind it being not scripted and kind of going wherever. But if you take anything from what we talked about tonight, hopefully you had some fun and were entertained by the whole Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology and all the other stuff.
Oh boy.
I guess what Jennifer and I are trying to say is, like, we really don't know what we don't know, kind of thing. And we have to start paying attention as a society and as a culture. It's fun to research these things and it's fun to connect the dots, but sometimes it's a little scary when the dots start connecting and you start realizing that this has been happening for a long time, and on almost every level of society, or every level of, or every facet of our life, from employment decisions to what kids are taught in school to, everything. Adult education, nursing homes, politics, foreign relations, the ideas of Christianity and other religions. And it's every facet of our life we've been lied to about just about everything. I mean, there really hasn't been a facet of our life that hasn't had some effect by some of these people that we've been researching, and we'll have other shows on, have had this. It's touched everybody, but we let it. And I think we're getting to the point right now, and I think that's why God has people here right now, because God knows that we can handle it. We have the strength to handle it. We have the strength to use discernment. We have the strength to get rid of it. We were chosen for this time for a reason. I'm not just talking about Jennifer and I, but I'm talking about everybody right now has the ability to. God doesn't choose people that are weak or that he doesn't think can handle it or that can't get the job done, so to speak. He's always used people from the most interesting walks of life to accomplish some of the most amazing things. And I think every day, I'm so lucky to be alive right now, to be witness to a lot of the things that are transpiring and that are being revealed and that are being fixed as we're revealing them. So it's gonna be, like Jennifer said, it's gonna be a little bit of a crazy bumpy ride for a little while, I think, but ultimately in the long run, it's gonna be worth it, because people will tell their children, people will keep passing this down because they don't want it to happen again. That's my theory anyway.
Nice. This has been so good to have this very interesting discussion.
Yeah, it's like, where can you go to get this kind of stuff? Where can you get these kind of discussions? You're not going to have them at home, I guarantee, unless you have a whole family of, tinfoil hat wearers or whatever.
That would be awesome to be in can you imagine having everybody in your family like on the same page?
Yeah, can you imagine coming home from work and then the kids are home from school and everybody's at the dinner table and they're like, oh my God, you won't guess the rabbit hole I was down today. And they start talking about whatever, and that would be cool. I mean, that would be an awesome thing to see happen, but
that would.
And it may happen. Who knows? It might be happening a little bit now, because just from people I talk to on the regular, I can see some of the fog lifting in their reality, and some of the fog lifting in their family's reality and that kind of stuff. But
good. Yeah.
It's going to be a rough ride for a little while. Just know that, but it's going to be worth it in the end. Excuse me. So we do have, I wrote them down. We do have some interesting subjects for future shows.
Yay.
But if you guys have anything that you want us to dig about or dig into, or, rabbit holes you want us to check out, because I know with the interwebs and everything and YouTube, a lot of people have covered a lot of things. I mean, you could pretty much find any subject that you want. Yeah. But there are some things that probably aren't as in depth as we would like, I guess. And I think that's why it's fun to do these deep dives. And if you get a chance to watch Jennifer's shows, because she puts everything into them, and you could tell. I mean, even the pictures are amazing. It's like where is she getting these images at? And she's got everything she's removed the background on some of the images and she's combining stuff. And it's like, this takes time. It takes time, not only to do the research, but to do that stuff. So kudos. Those are awesome videos.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Especially the recent ones.
Thank you. I'm just enjoying this whole, process, and I want to get better at it, and I want to keep learning more of these ways to combat these narratives. And I know that I'm a visual learner. That's why I put a lot of effort in the visuals.
Yeah, I love the visual part of it too, and I'm constantly creating videos and artwork or stuff to go along with things, but it's time consuming. It's just, so if you have for the people out there, that obviously you have to keep a roof over your head and stuff. You can't make it a 24/7 endeavor.
It's very
But I think it's important right now at this time. It's not called revelation for nothing or revelations for nothing, because look at everything that we're learning right now. Look at everything that's coming to the surface. Look at all the revelations happening around us every day. Literally, there's no time in history that I can think of that this many revelations are happening at one time. And what people do with those, that's up to them. However you digest that information, and obviously we're not trying to tell you that you need to believe everything we say, or just trying to give you some food for thought, some things to think about, that you may not have thought about before. So hopefully we're doing some kind of a service for you.
Yes, I hope so.
But you do have to check out Jennifer's videos. It'll be, the channel will be in the link in the description after I'm done doing what I need to do with the video. And you do kind of like a combination. Sometimes you'll just upload videos like pre-recorded, and sometimes you'll do lives. And
the combination.
The combination.
This one is going to be an upload of an edited. It's going to be about Will Smith and this whole thing that just happened. I see some things I want to put together about it.
Well, since we're talking about that, let's end on a meme real quick here. And
I love your memes. You got the meme cannons.
Yes, I didn't create this one, but of course all the Will Smith ones came out today.
Only imagine.
And this was one of my favorite ones. I don't know why, it just is, but
that's good.
And if you get it, God bless you.
That's great. That is great. Oh my gosh. Funny.
There's literally
I bet the meme people are having a fun time with this one, huh?
There's some hold on a sec. There's one specific one here. Let's see if I can find it real quick.
I have seen a lot of them.
Have you seen a lot of them?
No, I haven't. This
Oh,
is
you haven't seen a lot.
No, I haven't. I've been out of the loop a little bit with the
first of all, since we're going there, hold on a second here. I have the and this is the sad thing. This is kind of a consequence of this. Like, we know, like, Vice is such a wonderful publication, and they do such wonderful work. Anything weird and crappy, and it's now a QAnon conspiracy, or somehow we're responsible for Will Smith smacking the crap out of Chris Rock. Somehow that in the day got spun that we're responsible, and that but at least it's getting out in the public, because Vice says conspiracy theorists immediately dismissed the smack as fake, which I did, designed to distract the world from the real horrors of Hollywood actors trafficking children and drinking their blood. So
interesting.
So even if you believe everything Vice says and you think that's a great publication, and you're half asleep, or at least that stuff's getting out in the public. Like, those words are getting out there. And all right, here it is right here. I just put into context what we're talking about. If you haven't seen it, since we're going there, only the Japanese version was left unedited. ABC or whoever was doing it, they cut everything out and they made it look like Will Smith and Chris Rock were joking around with each other at a distance, kind of thing. But the Japanese version, unedited. Here's the unedited event as it unfolded.
どうなんでしょうか。
Oh, wow. Wow. Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me.
ウィル・スミスにやられました。
Wow, dude. It was a G.I. Jane joke.
G.I. ジェーンのジョークだったんです。
I'm going to.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I said, but yet he's okay with other men having their way with his wife. So
yeah, that's interesting. I'm glad you showed me that Vice is already spinning a narrative.
they're not the only ones. They're
very good. Good to know. It just it like in energizes me more. It's okay for another man. It just makes no sense. But I'm seeing some really weird things like with this whole thing, but I definitely don't believe it's real.
I don't either. I think it's actors acting, I think it's all theater, and I think it's the Oscars were hurting there and Hollywood, I'll use elites in quotes, these A-list actors and others. If you notice in a lot of these programs until recently, they've been missing from them, like all these A-listers and stuff. And so I have a feeling a lot of these events don't mean the same thing anymore. And especially after Ricky Gervais blasted them a couple of years ago.
Right.
So I think that their ratings obviously have plummeted. And this is a way to create a little hype, create a little something, a little attention. So I don't know. I could be way off base, but I'm not the only one that thinks that.
Definitely not.
Obviously, Vice thinks us QAnoners or whatever, or I don't know. Anyway, that's a whole nother show, whole different whatever. But since we went there, I just wanted to show that video.
Thank you. Good to see. So I'll be working on my Will Smith video. That'll be my next one out.
The Fresh Prince of the Oscars.
Exactly. It bumped ahead of like another one I was working on because it has to get attention, the attention that it doesn't want, actually. They don't want this kind of attention.
And you had this woman on Twitter, can't remember her name, but she's a black woman, who basically came out and said, white folks, this isn't about you. This is a black folks matter. You wouldn't understand kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like so that started a whole shitstorm.
I have seen that stuff. And, they call it Black Twitter. And I'm very disturbed by how they're spinning this in a black narrative. It's disgusting that they're bringing up racial, like they're inflaming racial tensions. Like this had nothing to do with white people and white supremacy. Like this is, but they've made it about that. And I didn't think you could make leaps of logic like this.
That's what I was talking about earlier about this crazy ass world we live in. They just automatically assume you're going to digest it and accept it. I mean, in any other situation, if that was you or me up there and I smacked the crap out of Chris Rock or somebody else, I would have been hauled off the stage or I would have been hauled off to jail, let alone receive an Oscar, because Will Smith ended up receiving an Oscar for something later on. And so that just goes to show the double standard, not only in Hollywood, but in the justice system too. And I mean, in any other, it's just crazy. It's crazy, crazy, crazy.
Yep.
Insane people. Insane in the Membrane, if you remember that song.
Yeah. Wow.
So let's see. What do we got? Nana for Trump. I'm behind. Am I watching your videos? But I will catch up. You guys do a great job. Thank you. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
For those of you that have stuck around the whole time through this whole thing,
thank you.
God bless you. God bless you. It's been 2.5 hours. This is like Jennifer's show lengths. This
Like
is
my norm, right? I don't even
this is like her norm.
time.
Like
Time
she doesn't even break a sweat. She's got her big beaker of whatever Java juice she's got drinking there, and she's good.
I'm good. Yeah. That's right.
Well, I think we'll end it there, just because we could just keep going down all these different weird rabbit holes. So
Oh yeah.
we'll come up with an idea for next week, and we'll come up with it earlier so we can do a little more digging, and I can have more graphics made and whatever, and
Okay.
have it a little more visually entertaining for you folks. So
Sounds fun.
hopefully you got something out of this, and like I said, any subjects, anything, whatever rabbit holes you want us to try and research, let us know, and we will certainly look into it. So
Thank you. Thanks, John. This has been fun.
thank you, Jennifer. It's been wonderful. It's so awesome to have somebody that's you can kind of do something with, that kind of thinks the same way, or at least you're able to bounce things off each other and that kind of thing. And it's
Absolutely.
a little different than the other shows that we do, because it's a little more spontaneous, I think, and a little more I don't know, I just think they're more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Looking forward to more. Thank you.
Me too. Well, you
Okay.
guys, thank you so much for joining us, and anybody that's going to be watching this later,
Yes.
share with your friends. Don't be afraid to share it. I know you want to share it. Share it. So until next time, God bless you, and keep exploring. Keep
Right.
questioning.
God bless you all.
All right.
Thank you,
Good
John.
night.
Good one.
Good night.
Bye-bye.